Good afternoon. Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is the Rudy Giuliani Show on Lindell TV. And I'm very happy you've joined us tonight. It's a night, once again, filled with very, very compelling news. Every day of Trump's presidency seems to be that because, and there's a reason for that. He's I'm trying to get my tie straight. You see that?
No.
Yep. Now it's off.
A little bit.
No. Now it's good.
Just pull down.
There it is. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to just stay like that until we take a break, and then we'll get it right.
It's fine. So it's good.
There's a reason for that. And the reason is that more than any president, probably, and I'm kind of one of the older ones of all you people listening, I would think, in our lifetime, who's made this many changes, substantive changes. Now, in a way, you could say Biden is the one. It's like opposite direction. Right? He was taking us down, and Trump is bringing us up. So you have to say that opening the border and letting 12 to 20 million unknown people into this country is bringing this country down. Any country that would let 12 to 15 million people in, and they don't know who they are, and they haven't vetted them in any way, is a country on the way down. It was a country that withdrew from Afghanistan and got people needlessly killed in doing it. It's a country that gave China back or gave away military bases right on China's border, which could only be the act of an insane man or a traitor. Oh, we could go on, couldn't we? We had the worst inflation of 50 years. And now we're changing that. Already we're changing it. And many of the changes haven't taken place yet. Some have. Some he got done by executive order, the most important of which, of course, is the complete turnaround in immigration. We don't have anybody coming over the border now that amounts to any numbers that is close to anything we've had in the last 30 or 40 years. We have a secure border. Now, that doesn't really help us very much because we have an insecure United States. There's no way to possibly describe to you, history will, the damage that Biden and his administration and the Democrats have done with their insane position on immigration. It is an insane position. It's as insane as letting men go into the women's room. But there's something wrong with the leadership of that party. And it's more than just political. There's something pathological about the core of that party. They make decisions that are not only irrational, that are not only politically dumb, they make some decisions that are evil. Like giving billions of dollars to Iran, who then turned around and used the money to kill us. That's evil. What Obama did was evil. He got away with it because he got away with everything. Well, the one big bill is really pushing a deadline now, but it is a self-imposed deadline of July 4th. The real deadline, if you consider it that, is when we run out of money. I haven't heard an update on that in a while. The last update was about mid-August. That's about a month or a month and a half ago. I don't think they're giving you an update, and I'm going to tell you why. And please, Mr. President, don't get mad at me for giving away a secret. It's not classified. I don't think you're giving the date away because the data's moved. The data's moved because we've collected more money than we anticipated. I know the government real well. I know the budget process really well. And when, for example, the other month, when we took in record amounts of tariff revenues, and to some extent, pretty close to record revenues, that was after we had given the date of when we were going to run out of money. So that's like if, all of a sudden you think you're going to run out of money in August, and all of a sudden a big check comes in for $100,000 that you weren't expecting. Well, now you're not going to run out of money until September or maybe October. So there is more time, and they know that. I mean, that what I just told you is not, excuse using the expression right now, because we are dealing with all-time rocket science. So the bill is important for that, so the government can keep going. But the most important part of this bill is to continue the tax reductions, because and to add a few more, because the opposite of it is, because it was one of the largest tax reductions in history. People argue over whether Kennedy's were higher or Reagan's were higher, and that's about it. There's two other tax cuts that we had. I do think this was the highest in history, but could be that the others are. And by the way, all the numbers are a little fudgy, because the numbers they're predicting now are wrong, and they're wrong in a good way. Our deficit is not going to be affected as much as the budget analysts predict, because they don't know, and they've never figured out how to account for the positive side of a tax cut. So if you cut taxes by 10%, let's say you cut, like they're doing, you cut the estate tax, and you put it up to a $15 million exemption. I don't know. Let's say that's going to cost you. Let's say that's going to cost you $1 billion. You may very well, as a result of that, create all kinds of economic activity where people start to expand their estate because they're not worried about taxes up to $15 million. You may see parents giving more money to kids, and kids use it to open businesses. What happens when you lower taxes is you take it out of the government portion of the economy and you put it in the private portion of the economy. And if you are an American and who believes in the American essential system of a free government and a free economy, it is used much more productively in the private sector than in the government sector. So every time you can make a choice to put more money into the private sector, ultimately the economy is going to grow more than you anticipate. And in this respect, we govern like socialists as opposed to believers in free market economy. But that's the big part of it. It would be a disaster if that part is not passed. And the president, of course, adopted the advice of the House, which was get everything that's very necessary done in one big, beautiful bill. Because if you just do, let's say, the taxes, the rest will never get passed. Because next year we go into an election year for them, and they're going to be obstruction. If you think they're obstructionists now, they're going to be nuts next year. They're going to do everything they can to try to bring him down and bring Republicans down, without any regard for the good of the country. They are a positively negative force in this country. So the general analysis right now is that it hasn't been, believe it or not, it hasn't been all put together yet, so nobody can tell whether it'll pass the Senate. I don't think that's the issue. I think it'll pass the Senate. I think that the Senate leadership is coherent enough and tight enough that this will get past the Senate. The real question is, they're going to change it from what the House voted on. And there it's going to be not in the big one, I would say, is state and local taxes, SALT. Used to be a SALT treaty for arms, and confused me when they call it SALT, but state and local taxes. And it's in some ways it's a sectional not so much a sectional issue, but it affects certain states negatively, having taken that away, and it affects other states very positively. So before there was a change made, and I think, what is it, 10,000? You can deduct no more than $10,000 in state and local taxes.
10 is the cap. Yeah.
What? And they want to, and the House was able to get it passed, particularly by getting the votes of the new Congress members from New York and California, Republicans, because New York and California is very affected by that. That was for me, when I was in private business, that was my biggest tax deduction because I lived in New York. I paid horrendous taxes. And when Trump cut taxes last time, if I was thinking just in terms of my own pocketbook, I'd have been against it. It doesn't affect me now because I live in Florida, because I don't pay the same level of state and local taxes, much less. So if you live in a low tax state, you're not affected by this at all. If you live in a high tax state, you're very affected by it. And those are mostly Democrat states, right? So it's very tough. But then we elect Republicans there in order to keep our majority. And they believe that they don't get some kind of relief for their constituents. And they arrived at $40,000 as the compromise in the House. I don't think it's going to get sent back to the House that way. I think it's going to get sent back to the House maybe as is. Maybe they'll go to 20 to compromise. Maybe they won't go to anything so they can compromise in a conference committee. But the problem with this is, for it to pass, and now, please don't get involved in all this because it's so complicated, under the reconciliation process, the two things are necessary that you should be aware of. First of all, it has to substantially involve revenue. There have been some things knocked out already by the parliamentarian that were sort of like they're trying to bring things in that really don't directly have to do with revenue. Of course, this would not fail for that reason. It couldn't be anything that directly affects revenue more than taxes, right? But this second thing is the two versions of the bill have to ultimately be exactly the same, of course, right? So if the Senate wants no change in the SALT provision and the House wants to move it up by 4 times, that can be a struggle. And then there are other ones. There are reduction in spending on Medicaid, which, when you consider the level of fraud in Medicaid, it's well indexed to way less than the amount of fraud that they've already have found, and you can project they're going to find over a period of time. So this isn't really going to affect anybody's medical care, except people who are stealing Medicaid. And there are people. I mean, it's ridiculous to say, oh, Medicaid is so important, you're not allowed to say that people defraud Medicaid. You got to make believe that nobody defrauds in the Medicaid program. That means you got to live in a Democrat world where you make believe that money grows on trees. People cheat on Medicaid. Doctors cheat. Not all, some. And the level of reductions will easily be within that range. And then when we get further, we should reduce it some more. It's ridiculous with the amount of money that we pay for Medicaid. It's ridiculous to pay for fraud on top of that. And believe me, in the big Democrat states, which overuse Medicaid, which means they get the other states to help pay for them, they don't want you to do that. So those are the battles that are involved. The Wall Street Journal today concluded there aren't enough votes for a bill that isn't finished yet. I think they're wrong if they're talking about getting it through the Senate. I think they're right if you're talking about this isn't going to be finished until the Senate will vote for it. It'll be different in the House. The House is not going to accept it exactly the way the Senate sends back, and then they're going to have to fight over it. And the president has said, and I'm so glad he did, because it annoys the hell out of me all the time they take off, that they got to stay there until they get it done. That's being a chief executive. I mean, the Senate averages 2.5 days a week. And that doesn't count in all the vacations they take. If you did that and you applied that to the number of days, I bet it's 1.5 days a week. That's not a full-time job. Well, it seems like, it doesn't seem like, I told you this yesterday, I think it's now been proven, that whole issue about CNN saying that the amount of damage done to Fordo was so little that it'll reopen in 2 years is another one in another chapter in the try to destroy Donald Trump book. I mean, this is like Russian collusion. It's like the Ukrainian telephone conversation that never took place the way they said it took place. It's like, he led an insurrection on January 6th. It's like, I could go on and on and on. They've got one after another, that he's a racist, that he's a warmonger, that he's a Nazi, that he's Hitler. This is just another one of those. And you say, well, how did that it didn't come out of his administration. It came out of the deep state. The national, the intelligence apparatus, even in the White House, still has plans from Biden days. I mean, they had so many last time. The guy who produced a false report on Ukraine that then was substantially corrected, and the guy went and hid, and they never revealed his identity, even though Schiff promised to. His name is Eric Chiarella, by the way, as far as I can tell. And I have quite a bit of information about Eric Chiarella meeting with the Ukrainian officials and asked them for looking for, when he was on the National Security Council and representing Biden, the same guy who wrote the letter that Schiff will not identify is a guy that 4 years earlier met with 4 Ukrainian prosecutors and asked them to dig up dirt on very high-level Republicans, including Eric Trump. And that, if you can go back to my podcast, you'll see it. It's number 7 and number 8. He was around. He was a Biden guy, and they hid him away, and then he was able to do his dirty deed, a couple of years later. Well, that's what happened here. We can analyze this with the thing that you have to learn to really sharpen up if you want to live through the era of censorship, of Marxist censorship that we're living through. We don't have it now directly from most of our government, but we do have it coming from the leftovers of the deep state, and we certainly have it coming from CNN. In fact, it's very interesting. The the Democrat operative at CNN who did this is the same person who maligned me, the same person who ran with the story of 51 intelligence experts saying that the Hunter Biden hard drive had earmarks of Russian collusion. That turned out to be one of the great false stories of the new century. Completely false, proven 5 ways to Sunday. But she's still there at CNN. There's also, if you read Miranda Devine's column today, you'll see there, basically she specializes in false stories about Donald Trump, and then she's kept there. I mean, after having done Russian collusion, that should have been, or actually having done the 51 spies who lied, should have been enough to kick her out. It's quite obvious she's not really a reporter. She's a Democrat operative. Now, this one is not a story. What the hell is an intelligence estimate of low confidence worth? I mean, first of all, the whole concept is absurd. Don't give it to me if you have low confidence in it. I didn't have my people who worked for me when I was mayor give me things they had low confidence in. If I had my police department report to me the things they had low confidence in, I never would have caught any criminals. You have low confidence in all the things you don't follow up on, jackasses. You don't think I could figure out the minute I heard it was low confidence, it was a setup? And not only did they have low confidence in the calculation that so little damage was done that it could reopen in 2 or 3 years, they also had low confidence in the calculation that a great deal of damage was done. That's like at one end and the other end of the report, that's like telling me this report is worth shit. This is a shit report. And you make it a headline, a low confidence report about a destruction you could see with your own eyes was quite substantial. Nobody knows exactly how much, but every other report on this from organizations that are not particularly pro-Trump is that a great deal of damage was done. Even Iran said that. Even Iran said that. And here's a report from, let me see, I get the right organization here. The Institute for Science and International Security. Overall, Israel's U.S. attacks have effectively destroyed Iran's centrifuge enrichment program. It will be a long time before Iran comes anywhere near the capability it had before the attack. That is the conclusion, with a lot of confidence, of every other group that looked at it, other than some unknown group within our intelligence community that leaked it illegally. Now, why would they leak that illegally? Why would you leak something that's of low confidence? Aren't you almost by nature misleading people? If you're going to leak, which you shouldn't do at all, you leak something you have confidence in. Do you understand that, Ted? I mean, do you understand how they get away with this? These things, it just takes a modicum of logic to figure out. I mean, it just took me about 20 minutes to figure out the Russian collusion was completely untrue. Sometime I'll take you through it. And it took the United States government $100 million to figure it out. And the Times and the Post, and who knows, maybe this Bertrand woman all have Pulitzer Prizes and for being liars.
Well, when will they be held accountable?
Never. I mean, how many times does she have to lie? There's her face. How many times does she have to lie before they get rid of her? I don't know. They should have gotten rid of her when she basically circulated that totally, absolutely, ridiculously phony letter from those 51 intelligence officers. I'll tell you why it was obviously phony. They couldn't possibly have done that work in a day and a half. And then when you go interview them, none of them read the report. It's like this thing. They've learned how to do this. I mean, they're like communists. That's what happens in a totalitarian state. They make things up, and then the news reports it. I don't know if she included it in the report. I don't want to accuse her of this or not, because I've heard both about it, and I listened to the report, and I didn't listen to it for this. But one of the versions of this is that when the report was put out, they didn't include the qualifiers about a low confidence. And what makes sense is they wouldn't include it, because if you would think the press would just throw it away. I mean, if I received a report of low confidence, I wouldn't publish it. So now I do hope we catch the traitors who did this, because this was done for a malicious purpose. You know, you could say the people who put out the Pentagon Papers case were putting out reports about what actually happened in government that was arguably bad. And therefore, there was a certain justification for it or not, depending on how you want to look at the law, right? But this is, by the very nature of the way the report qualifies itself, this is just done so you can put out something to contradict Trump. I mean, the government is not in the business of putting out reports of low confidence. I mean, it would be an awfully stupid government if we put those out. So I don't know if you realize how serious this is to our government and to the fact that we just can't work together for the good of the United States. To criticize this effort on the part of our military based on a report of no confidence, which conflicts with all the other reports and conclusions, not just the president. I've got about 6 of them that concluded that devastating damage was done. And gosh, when you look from the air, there's no way after that damage, it's going to take them 2 years to clean it up. I mean, your mind has to engage when you do this, unless you're a automaton, a Democrat operative, not a reporter. Well, I mean, nobody listens to CNN, so they have to do things like this to get publicity beyond CNN, so people will even know they're around. I mean, their audience is down to nothing because they do so much of this lying. You don't know what to believe. I watch it because I have to, and then I get so frustrated I put it off. I know they're just directly lying. You can tell when they start making things up. So the Wall Street Journal kind of plays it kind of down the middle. So they have an article today saying how difficult intelligence is. Of course it's difficult. You're spying in order to get it. I was involved in doing that for years, not just on crime, but when I was Associate Attorney General. I mean, as Associate Deputy Attorney General and Associate Attorney General, I was involved with a large number of other people in developing the FISA court. Probably was involved in the first cases that went to the FISA court. Selected the lawyers who were the original lawyers for the FISA court, including Joe DeGenova. So I know this process really, really well. I can't remember ever putting out, I mean, even legally and officially, a report of low confidence. The only reason they put it out is because the only they had to contradict Trump. But that isn't their job, to contradict Trump. Their job is to supply the most trustworthy intelligence that we can get. We haven't had that in a long time. And those 51 spies who lied, that wasn't the first time they did it. You know, if you want to get really angry about weapons of mass destruction, they're the guys who brought that to us, the ones who lied about me and Trump. Well, there is a question as to whether or not the Ukrainians removed some or all of the enriched uranium before the attack, because several days before, the satellite picked up a large number of trucks outside of, I believe it was Fordo. And if they did, Emily Crane in the Post raises the possibility that the hidden fortress where they might have moved it to is Pickaxe Mountain, which is right nearby. Now we don't. Now I don't know what her basis is for that. I don't know what her basis is for that. I've read the article, and I don't see that she gives us a basis for that. I mean, it could be. We just don't know. The reason it is not necessarily untrue, but low confidence in that conclusion. It's very difficult to move this. And think about it. This is enriched uranium. You have an accident on the road. You just got rid of that. You just got that whole area of your country, and it's the province over from Tehran. The wind blowing the wrong way. Who knows what kind of damage you would do? You'd be very hesitant to move this. You certainly wouldn't do it. I'd have to go back and look at the date, but that date was just a few days before the attack. So they didn't do it very slowly over a long period of time. If they did it, now the president says that those trucks were forming up to block roads and do things like that. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. But the mere fact that they got some or all of the enriched uranium out, it really doesn't matter all that much if everything else is destroyed, because they have to be able to. That uranium is useless to them until they get it up to 90%. Now, they had the equipment to do that. Almost certainly that equipment is gone, and it's certainly not available, if it is at all, in the numbers that would be necessary to get them to being the nuclear power they want to be anytime in the foreseeable future. And that, so far, that's the preliminary conclusion of the vast majority of reports that were done. But if you read one of our communist newspapers, you wouldn't know that, because that squares a little too much with what the president said. So once again, CNN gives the American people a completely false story, which has an impact on and hurts our national security, because their hatred for Trump exceeds anything. Certainly their love of America, or their professionalism, which doesn't exist anymore as journalists. And they seem to be using the same operatives all the time. I mean, no matter how much they're wrong. I mean, another reason not to give any confidence to this is it's written by a reporter who's been spectacularly wrong over and over. I'd like to know the article, but maybe somebody should put out a couple of the things that she did that is true. I mean, she probably did, but I mean, I don't know what they are. Looks like the important stories she covered were 100% false. The one about the 51 spies who lied has been proven to be 100% false, untrue, and obviously untrue when you printed it, because they, as I said, they couldn't possibly have gone through that report. And also, there's a big giveaway, and since I was personally involved and I analyzed it very carefully, they say that the hard drive has earmarks of Russian collusion. Now, this reporter is such a automaton of and creature and puppet of the Democrat Socialist Party, which is what it is, that she doesn't raise the following question that any halfway legitimate reporter would raise. Why don't they give an example? One example, it has earmarks of Russian collusion, so much so that they all signed this letter, but they can't mention a specific earmark, like one earmark. Now, I have investigated liars and criminals and fraudsters forever. What you just saw there is almost typical of a fraudulent offering. They make a very general statement that's untrue, and they don't come up with any examples, because the big bold statement being untrue is very hard to disprove. In this particular case, it took 17 months to do it, but we did, blew it out of the water. But little specifics are sometimes completely easy to blow out of the water. So liars don't give you the specifics. You know why? They don't have it because they're lying. Does this make sense to you? You see, what I'm doing is what legitimate analysts of legal issues or political issues do. They take their reason and they apply it. And they say, does this make sense or doesn't it? It didn't make sense that that came from Russia. It wasn't written in Russian. Well, we're going to take a short break. Why am I laughing, Ted? I'm laughing because they get a... It's like we never learn. They just keep getting away with it. Right. Nobody holds them accountable.
Right, and at some point, it's like...
I mean, there got to be some things we can prosecute them for. My God, these things, they engage in an entire massive conspiracy based on lies to remove a lawfully elected president. That's not a crime? Well, we'll be right back.
With everybody talking about making America healthy again, I thought today'd be a great day to talk to all my fellow patriots about the importance of making your homes healthy again. Well, we have proudly partnered with airwaterhealing.com and their revolutionary whole home air purification system. The V3 from Air Water Healing does 3,000 square feet of purification. It eliminates dust, mold, viruses, and odors. But here's the part I love. They require no filters to ever be changed and virtually no maintenance. Whether you suffer from asthma, allergies, seasonal bronchitis, or just want to protect your family from the flu or even greater threats, don't wait to get your V3 from airwaterhealing.com today. Use code Lindell for 20% off in savings and free shipping. That's promo code Lindell at airwaterhealing.com.
Friends, we all know the truth. Big Pharma and the federal bureaucracy have made a mess of healthcare in this country, and boy, that's an understatement. President Trump signed an executive order to bring prices down, and that's a great step. But we know that real change takes time. There's one pharmacy that is already stepping up. I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're not waiting. They're taking action now with a summer sale that gives you the power to take control of your health. Right now, through the end of June, you get 20% off site-wide, no insurance required. Did you hear that? 20% off, site-wide, no insurance required. They work with licensed doctors in all 50 states, and they ship fast, straight to your door. Whether it's ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, methylene blue, antibiotics, emergency kits, or your daily prescriptions, this is a time to stock up. If you believe in medical freedom, if you're tired of waiting for someone else to fix things, do what I do. Take action. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Lindell and use promo code Lindell20, Lindell 20 for 20% off your entire order. That's allfamilypharmacy.com, Lindell. Promo code Lindell20. Let's protect our families, defend our freedom, and make America healthy again together.
The last time President Trump was in office, gold soared 50% and silver went up a huge 53%. Americans who invested in silver and gold during Donald Trump's first presidency are very happy that they did it. And right now, gold continues to soar to the highest numbers in history. These gains are just an appetizer for what's to come. Some market analysis are saying that gold is predicted to rise another 30% in the next year alone. So now's the time to invest in gold and silver, and that's why I partnered with Fisher Liberty Gold. Fisher Liberty Gold is a conservative-owned and operated precious metals investment company. They even helped my good friend President Trump get elected through their contributions to Turning Point USA and other conservative groups. I have dedicated my life to ensuring that people get the best sleep ever. And in addition to owning a MyPillow, I can now sleep well at night knowing that you can all protect your savings with precious metals with Fisher Liberty Gold. With Fisher Liberty Gold, you can sleep well knowing that your retirement is secure. And if you call now, you're going to receive your very own presidential gold guide and qualify for up to $20,000 in free silver. But wait, there's more. Call now or text metals to 26786 to receive your presidential gold guide from Fisher Liberty. And for a limited time, I will send you a free MyPillow for qualified accounts. This presidential gold guide from Fisher Liberty will tell you exactly why you need to own gold even while Donald Trump is president. And just by calling in, you get a free MyPillow for a limited time for qualified accounts, and up to $20,000 in free silver. So don't wait. Call 1-888-4GOLD-19 or text metals to 26786 today. That's 1-888-4GOLD-19 or text metals to 26786 today to receive your free MyPillow and up to $20,000 in free silver. Whether it's being a weekend warrior or spending time with your family, feeling your best is the key to doing the things you love. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Nirvanta. It's a natural solution designed to help you stay active and live well naturally. Nirvanta is a topical blend of all natural essential oils like frankincense, myrrh, and a proprietary gold standard plant stock extract. It's perfect for your hands, feet, knees, back, or anywhere else that needs a little extra care. Use Nirvanta proactively as part of your daily maintenance routine, and you're guaranteed you're going to feel the difference. Simply massage Nirvanta in for at least 60 seconds, 2 to 3 times a day to get the best results. And if you're not completely satisfied, you get your money back. No questions asked. There's simply no risk and no reason not to try Nirvanta today. Right now, you get 15% off with code Lindell exclusively at nirvantahealth.com. So stop reaching out for that medicine cabinet. Get Nirvanta instead and experience the difference. Go to nirvantahealth.com. Use code Lindell to get 15% off today. Nirvanta Health. Live well naturally.
Welcome back. This is Rudy Giuliani, The Rudy Giuliani Show. We have today was a very active day at the White House, and our reporter, Kara Castanova, has filed a report with us. So we're gonna watch that now, and that should take you through what happened in the White House, and then we'll comment on it. Kara?
Hey, Mr. Mayor. So here is a rundown of the briefing today that happened at the White House. Hey, everybody. Kara Castanova from Lindell TV here at the White House, where Carolyn Levitt just did a briefing and spoke about a lot of things. One of the main points of focus, obviously, was the Israel-Iran war. And Carolyn went on to speak about how, after decades in which past presidents coddled and enabled the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, the president finally ended the immediate threat of a nuclear Iranian regime. So here's Caroline Levitt speaking at today's press briefing.
The world is a much safer place. After decades in which past presidents coddled and enabled the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, President Trump finally ended the immediate threat of a nuclear Iranian regime. Following President Trump's command, the most powerful military in the history of the world executed massive precision strikes on 3 of the Iranian regime's key nuclear facilities. The objective of Operation Midnight Hammer was to destroy the regime's nuclear enrichment capacity and stop the grave nuclear threat posed to the United States, Israel, and the rest of the free world. The mission, which will go down in the history books, was an overwhelming success. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Raisin Kane covered the operation in great detail at their briefing this morning at the Pentagon, and I encourage every American to watch it. As President Trump has said repeatedly, the United States of America has the greatest, fiercest, and bravest armed forces ever to stride the face of this earth, and we couldn't be more grateful and proud of our nation's warriors.
In another interesting exchange at this press briefing, Carolyn Leavitt also slammed the fake news, specifically this time the Miami Herald, which had falsely claimed, according to Carolyn Leavitt, that DHS is targeting foster children. This was reshared by Carolyn Leavitt on her X account, basically asking the question, why is the Miami Herald not reporting on the 300,000 children that have went missing and are suspected to have been trafficked over the border? There was a 14-year-old girl who was found recently by DHS that was pregnant and living with 2 adult men. So this is Caroline Leavitt's response to a reporter that asked her about this situation.
Story saying the Trump administration was targeting migrant foster children. The Trump administration has denounced this as false. Could you clarify the Trump administration's position on protecting migrant children, particularly the 300,000 lost under the Biden administration?
Yes, I saw that Miami Herald article yesterday, and I was aghast at the headline. It's egregious to accuse this administration of trying to target foster children. That is not at all what is happening at the Department of Homeland Security. And I learned that the Department of Homeland Security actually tried to work in good faith with this reporter to get this story right, to explain that this administration is trying to protect foster children. We are trying to keep children out of harm's way, even if that means their parents are not law-abiding citizens. We want to protect children, unlike the previous administration, which allowed children to be trafficked and raped, and in some cases killed because of the open border policies. Unfortunately, the Miami Herald just completely degraded themselves with this report, despite having a full list of facts from the Department of Homeland Security. It's another example of fake news. And the May border numbers speak for themselves. Not a single illegal alien was allowed into this country because of this administration's border policies in the month of May. That means not a single child was allowed into this country, possibly with human smugglers or human traffickers. And we know that was happening at the rate of thousands and thousands of children every single month in the previous administration for 4 years. And you didn't see any reporting of that from the Miami Herald, but now they're trying to accuse this administration. And we tried to give them the facts, and they refused to report them. So thank you for bringing that.
Carolyn Leavitt also went on to address the Defense Intelligence Agency leak. Somebody leaked a document that said that the Iran nuclear sites were not completely demolished, and there were some questions there. So here is Carolyn Leavitt really speaking on that issue, and again, addressing the fake news that she says reported inaccurately on this report.
And the entirety of that assessment was not leaked to the media. Only tidbits of that assessment were leaked to CNN. And we have seen this playbook run before, where you have people in the intelligence community, or perhaps on Capitol Hill, we don't know, but I believe the FBI is investigating to find out who that leaker was, because it's illegal, and they should be held accountable for that, leaked bits and pieces of an intel assessment to push a false narrative. And it's to the same reporter, I will add, Natasha Bertrand of CNN, who has done this in the past. In 2020, it was Natasha Bertrand who had 51 intelligence analysts falsely lie to her, but she still put it on paper for some reason, that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation. We all know that's not true, right? We can all agree on that now. That was a lie from the intelligence community. Also in 2020, this same reporter, Natasha Bertrand, wrote that a top intel agency ruled out the man-made lab leak theory of the coronavirus origins. Again, the president was right about that. This reporter wrote a lie from the intelligence community to seek a narrative she wanted to prove, and guess what? We now know that's the truth. Also, in 2024, Bertrand pushed the suckers and losers hoax. She also pushed the fine people hoax, which was taking the president's words purposely out of context. And then last October, and I believe this is notable, Natasha Bertrand published an article in Politico from the intelligence agency She said that John Ratcliffe was speaking without any evidence when he said Iran was attempting to undermine President Trump's presidential campaign. And then we, of course, found out that was absolutely true. In fact, the Biden administration declassed an intel report which said they had high confidence that Iran had done exactly what Ratcliffe alleged. They did run an influence campaign to hurt President Trump's candidacy. In fact, we know the Iranians tried to take President Trump's life.
Well, I have to say I am extraordinarily impressed. If I were a U.S. attorney again, I would call the president and say, she's a great prosecutor. Wow. I mean, that case that she made against the Bertrand woman is overpowering. And all it tells you is that CNN wants to have a reporter that misleads around. Because maybe a lot of other reporters would say, I'm not gonna make a big deal out of an intelligence report of low confidence. You make that a headline? Low confidence? I mean, it's screaming out to you that it shouldn't be covered until they develop more information about it. And low confidence is almost telling you it's not true. Just like what she did with the 51 spies that lied. You just have to look at that to see it's not true. They didn't have enough time to make such a definitive conclusion. And they did what liars do all the time. They made a big general statement that supposedly said there were many, many earmarks of Russian collusion, and they gave not a single example. Now, even if you're going to do that, at least you point those two qualifiers out if you're interested in the truth. But if you are interested in lying over and over again, and then, of course, the other ones speak for themselves. It's really terrible of what they do because it hurts the country ultimately. It hurts the country to have, and some people will believe it no matter what. I mean, they'll believe it, and it diminishes not just the president's achievement, diminishes the military's achievement. This was a great achievement. I mean, think about this. There were 14 30,000-pound bombs released, 12 of them over Fordo, the place that she says can be rebuilt in 2 to 3 years. And she doesn't inquire when she writes it why there's low confidence. Wouldn't you want to know why there's low confidence? One of the reasons there's low confidence, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that with that amount of ordnance that was used, go multiply 12 by 30,000 pounds, and that's what was put on top of that facility. It's going to take years to clean it up. Well, what's new? The press is spectacularly lying. We also should point out before we have to break the unbelievable achievement of the president with NATO. I mean, crooked Biden any number of times would say that Trump was going to ruin NATO because he's being tough on him. NATO is now already a vastly improved alliance. It's an alliance that doesn't have just 1 or 2 members. It's an alliance that has gone from not putting in its 2% of GDP for defense, where America has to do all of it, and America can't do all of it, to almost all being at their 2% level, many of them at the 3.5% level, and headed over the next couple of years to a 5% level, which will give us tremendous resources to deal with the threats against us. And already you can see a difference in camaraderie and working together at this latest meeting of NATO. Remarkable. Remarkable. Presidents have been trying to do this forever. These are rich countries. These are not third world countries. These countries should pay for their own defense. And then whatever we add to it is extra. And what we can add to it is not just money, but it's obvious when you watch this attack and some others. We have a military expertise second to none. In fact, no one's anywhere near us in terms of expertise. So I don't know if you can see this before we get off. Well, I'll put it up immediately on X. I don't think we have the time to cover it. I'll show you what the contributions are. I think right now and where they're headed. But this is a tremendous amount more money for our common defense. And it's only happened because Donald Trump was willing to make an issue of something that no other American president has. How many times do we have to say that before we all admit that he's a great president? Well, again, let's pray for all the people that are in harm's way, including our military. I think there's a little cessation right now with Iran, but it's not over. The regime of terror will only be over when it's over. And that's why I am a big proponent of regime change. That's my opinion. Well, we'll see you tomorrow night. We'll be continuing very shortly on X. And pray for the president. It is a tough time. Pray for his administration, because that's where we're going to get ourselves through this, through his leadership. And God bless America.